All right, let's jump right in. Chances are you've heard the parable of the 10 virgins before. You know, a wedding, some lamps, a locked door. It sounds pretty simple on the surface, but just underneath that familiar story, there's a message that's actually really puzzling and honestly pretty urgent. It's all about being ready for a moment that you just can't predict. And the real puzzle starts right here. The foolish virgins, their lamps are sputtering out, they turn to the wise ones for help, and the answer they get just feels, well, it feels cold. Nope, go by your own. I mean, at the most critical moment imaginable, why on earth would the wise characters just refuse to help? That question, right there, is the key that unlocks this entire story. And together, we're going to solve it. So let's use that one baffling moment, that refusal to share, as our way into this whole thing. It's the central mystery we have to unpack to get what this parable is really trying to tell us. Now, to solve this puzzle, we have to do a little time traveling. Seriously. We need to forget everything we know about a modern, quiet church wedding and really transport ourselves into the chaotic, high-stakes, and super unpredictable world of a first-century wedding. You see, a wedding back then wasn't a one-afternoon deal. It was a huge, multi-stage event. It all started with the betrothal. Think of it as a legally binding contract, way more intense than our modern engagements. Then later, you had the presentation, where the groom would finally go claim his bride. But our story? It happens in the third and most crucial stage, the procession. And here's the thing you have to know. It always happened at night, and the groom's arrival time was a complete and total surprise. Nobody knew when he'd show up.
And this is so important to grasp. These 10 virgins weren't just guests hanging around. They had a job, a really important one. They were co-laborers, basically the welcome party, a guard of honor whose specific task was to light the groom's path through those pitch-black village streets. If their lights went out, the whole party would literally grind to a halt in the dark. They were absolutely essential.
Okay, now let's talk about their equipment, because this is where digging into a couple of the original Greek words changes absolutely everything about how we understand this story. So the word that we usually translate as lamp is lampos. But a lampos was not some tiny, cute little indoor clay lamp. That was a lichnos. No, a lampos was a big outdoor torch. We're talking a wooden pole with a bunch of oil-soaked rags wrapped around the end. It burned super bright, perfect for the outdoors, but it was a total fuel guzzler. To keep that thing lit, you had to re-soak it with fresh oil about every 15 or 20 minutes. So here's the takeaway. The torch itself was pretty much useless without a separate flask of extra oil. And that brings us to the word wise. The Greek word is phronimos. Now, this doesn't mean being a genius or having a high IQ. It's all about practical shrewdness, having the foresight to plan for things going wrong. It's that kind of wisdom that makes you think, what if he's late? I should probably pack extra. The foolish, on the other hand, were called moros. And yes, that's where we get our word moron. They were the ones who only planned for the best case, most immediate scenario.
So if the torch, the lampos, is the thing everyone sees, our public life, our service, our ministry, then what's the oil? This is where the story takes a turn into a really profound spiritual lesson. The oil, well, that represents the inner life. It's our private devotion, our real personal relationship with God. It's the hidden fuel that keeps the visible flame burning bright.
So this leads to a pretty critical warning. If the only thing that actually matters, the oil, is totally invisible, how in the world are you supposed to tell the wise from the foolish before that critical moment arrives? The really unsettling answer is, you can't. And that's the whole point. Now, this 50-50 split, 5 wise and 5 foolish, it isn't some literal prediction of who gets in and who doesn't. It's a storytelling tool, a literary device, designed to create the sharpest, most dramatic contrast possible. The message is that even within a group of the most dedicated, set-apart people, a huge portion could be just operating on appearances, totally unprepared for the real test. And the deception is so powerful because, from the outside, they were identical. They had the same title, all virgins set apart for this holy job. They had the same task, all waiting for the groom. They had the same equipment. They all carried torches. And, this is really important, they had the same human weakness. Every single one of them got tired and fell asleep. The only thing that separated them was the hidden preparation they made before they ever closed their eyes. So, with all that in mind, let's go back to that bizarre advice to go and buy oil. Was that even a real option for them? Just think about it for a second. We're talking about a tiny village in first-century Galilee. It's the middle of the night. There was no 24/7 convenience store. Every single shop would have been locked up tight. They were basically being sent on an impossible errand, a wild goose chase that would last until morning, and by then the party would be long over. That advice wasn't a helpful tip. It was what you might call holy irony. It was a blunt, almost sarcastic way of saying, your time is up. The thing you're looking for, it doesn't exist anymore. And this really gets to the core spiritual truth of the whole story. The wise virgins weren't being selfish. They were just stating a fact. You cannot get a last-minute loan on someone else's character. You can't just borrow another person's history with God when everything is on the line. That oil of spiritual readiness is deeply personal, and it's completely non-transferable. And all of this leads to the most chilling words in the entire story. When the foolish virgins finally get back and start knocking on the door, the groom doesn't say, "Sorry, you're late." He says, "I do not know you." This is the climax of the whole thing. His recognition of them wasn't based on their lamp, their past service, their job title. It was based on their oil, that inner relationship that made them truly known to him. Without it, they were complete strangers. So, to avoid ever hearing those words, this ancient parable becomes a direct, personal challenge for us, right here and now. It's basically inviting each of us to conduct our own little readiness audit. So what does that look like? First, audit your oil. Is your spiritual life just something that happens when you're on duty, or is it actually fueled by a private, secret devotion? Second, inspect your lamp. Is that flame flickering? Is your public ministry running way ahead of your private connection? And third, prepare for the delay. We have to build the spiritual endurance to keep going when things take way, way longer than we ever expected. And so, the parable leaves us with this final, piercing question. We all carry a torch of some kind, right? It's our job, our family, our service in the community, our reputation. That's the part everybody sees. But the question that truly matters when that cry finally comes at midnight is this: what's in your hidden vessel